Take the best record in the league with a sweep of the Pacers tonight, but once again they'll be without Kawhi Leonard when they take the floor in Indy. Don't be fooled by the warm-up. Load management is at play, which means Kawhi will not play tonight against Indiana. Joel Embiid questionable tonight because of a sore back. Maybe he's talking about that right now under that hood on his way in to take on the San Antonio Spurs. The Sixers already shorthanded without Ben Simmons tonight, or excuse me, without Jimmy Butler. Ben Simmons will play despite an illness. And the best show in basketball plays the big room off Broadway tonight. James Harden can extend his bucket binge at the Garden against the New York Knicks.
It's always special, man. It's special to play in the Garden. We all know the history and just that atmosphere in the Garden, especially just New York fans in general. It's different. It'll be exciting. Honestly, we gotta get a win.
A lot of players, superstars say they had that Garden moment. Do you feel like you've had one yet, or are you still looking for it?
I'm still looking for it.
It's been a little while since the New York Knicks have been really good, but opposing players still get very excited about playing Madison Square Garden, regardless of the opponent's record at the time. And that'll be the situation for James Harden, his lone visit to MSG tonight. Hi, everybody. It's Game Time live from our Atlanta studio. Good to have you along with us. I'm Matt Weiner. It's Greg Anthony right over there. It's the first time we've seen each other.
It's been a while.
Since
it's been a while, Matthew.
The ankle blew up and the surgery and the whole thing.
Yeah, it blew up, it's on the mend, though. I'm feeling good.
Good. You walked in,
got shoes on.
You don't have a boot.
My feet in my shoes.
No crutch, no boot, no anything. You're mobile.
Feeling good.
It's good.
Yeah.
Sekou Smith, always spry.
Always healthy.
My feet are always looking.
Yeah. So I don't know about all that, but they healthy.
Well, when James Harden is playing, he leads the show just as he leads the league in scoring and beard volume. Tonight, Knicks fans can luxuriate in both with the Rockets playing MSG. Harden has an opportunity to join this list of the top scoring games in the building's history, led by Carmelo Anthony's 62, which happened, by the way, 5 years ago tomorrow. So when you think about these numbers, and you think about what Harden has been up to lately, 20 straight games now with 30 points or more. That's the minimum. That's the default for him at this point. Does he have a chance, or what kind of a chance do you give him to crack that top 5 tonight?
Ooh. Based on the roster they have right now and the confidence that he's playing with, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's got a chance. I think he could get 50 tonight. And I do. He knows about the list. He's been asked about it.
Yep.
And with the tear he's been on, I don't think there's any doubt he's going to go out and try to put forth an epic performance on that Garden stage.
All right, we'll lower the standard, put the over-under at 45 for you, Sekou.
Oh, I think he can definitely get over 45. That's not an issue. And look, let's be honest. The way the Rockets have been struggling to get healthy bodies in the mix, night after night, he may need to get 50. I mean, he may literally need 50 to make sure they escape the building with a win, and they need a win. For all the hard work and the explosive play we've seen out of James Harden, what are they, 5-5 in their last 10 games?
4-5 their last 9.
Yeah, I mean, It hasn't been a situation where they've just been leaving teams in the dust because of how great he's been playing. They've needed every ounce of what he can give to be competitive and to try to win some of these games, Matt. And that tells me that he should have a huge game in store tonight.
Well, that's one of the tricky things about predicting the point totals as well, because, look, the Rockets could easily blow out a Knicks team that's not very good and has lost, 6 in a row, I believe it is right now. Or they could get blown out. Who knows? That happened in Philadelphia the other day. He had 37 but didn't play the fourth quarter at all. He's also not been as good on the road as he is at home. If you look at the home-road splits, Harden scores about 6.5 points fewer on the road, shoots 5% worse on the road, and 6% worse from three-point range. So that could all factor in tonight as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the beauty of sports, right? We don't really know. But one thing we do know is he's been playing at an all-time level over this last stretch with how efficient he's been. And to Sekou's point, he's had to be. When you look at what they're missing in terms of that roster because of the injuries, they don't have a lot of other guys that can create and facilitate offense. And so he's had to carry the burden and been able to do it and, in essence, put them back in the mix. Remember, when Chris Paul went down, they were not in the postseason. They were not among the top 8. Now, all of a sudden, you look up, and they're sitting at a 5 spot. So even though they haven't won every game, he has been the reason why they've gotten themselves back into contention when you talk about the postseason.
Yeah, I think GA brings up a great point, too. When you don't have any other creators, I mean, Austin Rivers, I guess, would be the other guy you look at and say could create some offense for everybody else. But the burden on James Harden right now.
Unbelievable.
Just unbelievable to think that you're asking a guy to score like this and then get 10, 11 assists tonight, too. He's got to be responsible for so much of what goes on offensively for this team. You see Mike D'Antoni over there kind of, searching for answers on that bench, trying to figure out who he can put in. They've added Kenneth Faried to try and make up for the loss of Clint Capella. There's just so much that you have to try and do to play the way they want to play. And they don't have the human resources right now to do it exactly the way they want. Therefore, James Harden carries really an uneven burden, one that he won't have to when Chris Paul returns and take some of that pressure off of him.
The usage rate is at 40 at the moment. If you follow that stat, that is a ridiculously high number. By the way, Faried will start tonight for the Rockets. Nene is out resting this evening. Check out this nice list of players. These guys are all really good, right? They have a couple of things in common for the most part. They all have a lot of talent. And with the exception of Ben Simmons' unavailability, Kawhi Leonard's going to sit for his 4th straight game because of rest /
load management. They got to manage the load.
I love that phrase, by the way.
Got to manage the load.
Management.
Yeah.
I've got to incorporate that into my personal life. I'm sorry, I can't take out the trash. Load management is at play. 4 straight games now for the Raptors, who have been really good without him, by the way, 11-2 when Kawhi doesn't play. Is there any concern for you that this is cropping up kind of in the middle of the season when he had been playing? Hadn't played back-to-backs yet, but he had been playing fairly steadily so far.
I actually think this is the right time for them to enter into load management protocol. To me, it makes sense now. You do it now at the midway point, a little bit after the season. You don't want this to be something that lingers deep down the stretch of the season, Matt. And if it happened earlier in the year, I would have been concerned that he didn't return from his injury-filled season of a year ago to the level he should have. He's been fantastic when he's played. I don't know that if you're the Raptors, there's a whole lot of measure that needs to be taken now, because you understand the real test of this season for them is what can they do in the postseason with a healthy Kawhi when he won't have to worry about back-to-backs at all.
Right. Load management is not a concern in the postseason.
I would think load management would go out the window in mid-April.
Well, the other advantage of it is I think he's played enough to develop chemistry with that unit. But the other advantage from Toronto's standpoint is other guys get to develop confidence and trust amongst that rotation. So a lot of those young guys, you look at what's happened with Pascal Siakam and his rise this year, right? Anunoby is also another young player that's going to get opportunities because of this. And so other guys have stepped up, and now it makes your roster, the whole rotation, more formidable. Like coming in, most people thought, Boston was going to be the deepest team. Well, I think Toronto is the deepest team in the Eastern Conference because of that. And ultimately, as Sekou said, look, this is all they're going to be judged on what they do in the postseason. We've been down this path before with Toronto in regular season success.
Right.
Ultimately, 2 things are going for them. One, this is probably the best team they put forth in this latest run of success that they've had. And 2, they don't have LeBron James lurking in the Eastern Conference anymore. So they probably have to feel pretty good about the opportunity to finally get over the hump and get out of that Eastern Conference.
The boogeyman is gone.
Yeah.
He's gone to Los Angeles. In the meantime, as I mentioned, they're 11-2 without him, which is as impressive as anything that Kawhi's done this season when he's been on the floor.
Yeah, and think about the time they've played without Kyle Lowry as well.
Yeah.
And that would be my only mild concern for the Raptors is that Kawhi and Kyle Lowry, have they gotten enough time in the regular season to be in a groove come playoff time where they're able to play off each other? But they're both veterans, all-stars, guys who've played at such a high level. I'm not as worried about that with these two guys in particular as I would be if it was a different dynamic between the two. And these guys are seasoned pros.
Right.
They understand what it'll take to play off of each other and to be in the right space come playoff time.
Also still, 32, I think,
Plenty
games
of time
left for the Raptors. If they get them playing together for the bulk of the last 20, that's plenty of time to get the chemistry between those two right. For Kawhi to be the guy he needs to be in the playoffs, because, as Greg said, that's really what's going to tell the story here. Raptors are now in that weird scenario where they trail the Bucks by percentage points, even though they lead Milwaukee by a half game in the standings. You look at the standings, it's
what I can't understand, how do you put
when
the
the
Bucks
team
ahead?
that's
How
number
can you
one,
be one when you
but you're
are
a half game back
behind?
because it's percentage. Winning percentage is better.
Nah, but winning percentage.
I don't
should
make
be
the
better.
rules. I'm just telling you that's how it works out.
Record should be better.
I don't disagree. I'd like it
I
to
mean,
be.
it matter. Win percentage should matter if you have ties.
Well, they would be the same if you had a tie.
Not necessarily.
Oh, I see what you're saying. If it worked out
if
that
you
way.
had ties in terms
Yeah.
of games could end in a tie,
Right.
then win percentage would matter more. But because
Yeah, I agree. It's confusing. And
because if the season ended today, ladies and gentlemen, the Raptors would be the 1 seed.
well, the season ended today. It would be all kinds of screwy because everybody's played a different number of games. But winning ingredients delivered by Papa John's. The Pacers are rested, fully healthy, and have two of the best big men in the East in Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis. Turner starts, Sabonis usually doesn't. Both have been effective in different ways. Weirdly, they're a net negative when they share the floor together. How do their futures factor into Indy's future?
Well, the good thing for the Indiana Pacers is this is a problem that they don't have to truly concern themselves with for at least another season and a half.
Right.
Sabonis is a young, developing big man, as is Miles Turner, but they're two very different stages of their careers. Right now, Sabonis is really putting forth the effort he is and the production he is at a discount. You know you won't have him at this rookie price forever. Whereas Miles Turner is working into that next phase of his career where I think, GA, you want to see another step or two from Miles Turner. Physically, you thought he maybe would be further along right now than he is. But I kind of like it. I kind of like that these guys are coming along the way they are because it gives you an opportunity to really gauge the ceiling you have in both guys and then make some decisions down the road on who goes where, who stays, or whether or not you can have a future with both these guys together.
I don't know why they haven't played better when the two of them have been on the floor, which is not a huge sample size, under 45 minutes total over the course of the season. But
Well, why
such
would we even have that
skills.
conversation if they played 45 minutes together? You can play 45 minutes in one game. So to draw a conclusion on 45 minutes is a bit absurd.
Let me ask the second part of that. Why aren't they playing together more often?
Well,
They seem to have complementary skills.
Well, I think some of it might have to do with the other guys on the roster. Bogdanovich has been really good for them this year. Some of the other players on that roster have played well for them this year. There's a reason why they're right now looking at trying to have home court in the first round because they've got a complete roster. And so from a matchup standpoint, sometimes it's not always about whether they can play together. It's about, okay, we got to match up with this other team that's also pretty good. They might go small. So we've got to put a lineup out there that will allow us to match up with them and have success. So now, if you told me, hey, they've been on the floor to get this year 400 or 500 minutes, okay, now that to me that's a sample size that tells me, okay, there are issues there. And even then, I don't know that it's their fault.
No, I'm not saying it is.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying but that would tell me, okay, there's an issue. We haven't devised the scheme that will allow them to function together. Because if you think about it, they both have perimeter ability. Turner's actually probably better on the perimeter.
For
not
sure.
the back to the basket score that Sabonis is. But I don't really look at it as a matter of them functioning well together. I think they're fine together. And ultimately, this is about the team. And right now, their team is pretty damn good. They're playing good basketball. They're a 3 seed. They've improved from a year ago. And in all fairness, Oladipo hasn't been quite as good this year as he was statistically as he was last season.
And he was hurt a bunch.
Yeah, and he's been hurt. So, that also plays a role in those two guys. Your best player is not on the floor for an extended period of time. So, if I'm the Indiana Pacers, fan base, coaching staff, players, organization, I'm thrilled because I think we're ahead of schedule. I don't look at it the other way. I think they're ahead of where I did not see them being a 3 seed at this stage of the season, especially with Oladipo having missed as much time and not being nearly as good as he was a season ago.
I think they've complemented each other as well. We forget that, you got to factor in the minutes that Sabonis is on the floor and who's on the floor against him in that time. As a starter, Miles Turner's numbers might not look the way people want them to.
Sure.
But he's playing against a different level of player for many of his minutes. The part about both of them I like is you don't know what their finished product is yet. We don't know. Sabonis is a hybrid, maybe more of a hybrid than even Turner is. And so that allows you to play these guys in different spaces on the floor in terms of the area they occupy. We don't know how much better Turner's face-up game will become in the next year and a half. We don't know if the ceiling is closer for Sabonis than it might be for some other young big. So you have to me, have a little bit of patience when you're evaluating these guys and not rush to come up with some, metric that makes it look better than what it is. These guys are developing young players at a very tricky position in this league right now. And to me, you don't want to do anything to curtail the continued development for both of them in whatever lane they're going to be.
And they're both 22.
Yeah.
They're 22
they're very
years
young,
old.
yeah.
They're really young. And generally speaking, they weren't, top 2 picks where everyone said these guys are can't miss. From a developmental standpoint, they have, I think they're ahead of their own curves or what was expected of them when they were drafted. There's a reason why, Sabonis got traded. And I think if Indiana is a patient franchise, they're thrilled with their development. I mean, because they're impact players on an elite team in the Eastern Conference at 22 years of age. Both of them in the rotation, and ultimately that's how you judge these guys. They have been what I would consider success stories for their organization.
For sure. Yeah.
And I mean, they've got the kind of problems you want, where I don't even have to think about Sabonis' contract until the end of next year. And even then, I don't have to think about it because somebody else gets to set the market because he's going to be a restricted free agent.
Yeah. Trying to avoid the sweep tonight by the Toronto Raptors. Thaddeus Young said, in order to be in that class, we have to beat those teams, and we haven't done it yet. They're trying to join that, at least that perceived upper echelon in the Eastern Conference.
Wow, that is so powerful. As an African American, first to see those young students and how articulate and polished and socially aware they were. That's inspiring to hear that message in Dr. King's name.
Yeah, it was inspiring, and you were, you were blown away by their extensive vocabulary. Because they were able to articulate and express their point and then get it out. So again, kudos to the teachers. But the thing that was also disheartening was that, these are kids that are, in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and we're still talking about as a society, racial segregation, police brutality, and how can we all live together and be in harmony. And, as Dr. King said when we started off, he said, this is the Constitution, and we want America to live up to what is written on this paper. So, the Voting Rights Act came in the 60s. Again, Fair Housing Act came in the 60s. We talked about segregation in terms of education. People coming together, being educated in one place, that came in the 60s. And we're still fighting the same things today. From the 1600s, you were dealing with slavery. And then after that, you were dealing with Jim Crow, and now you're dealing with mass incarceration. So it's just a way to try to, get the system to correct itself, and we as the people correct the system so we can all be together, live together, and that's why we have such an advantage in sports when we play in sports, and that's why we can all get along, and that's why people come to sports to basically have these hard discussions, because we were fortunate enough to go in a locker room where it's a level playing field, right? And it's the guy in purple against the guy in white, and nobody's looking at race, class, religion, none of that. It was about, can we come together and win? And we don't realize how fortunate we've been to be involved in sports where we can break down these stereotypes and racial barriers. And some of these kids and a lot of people who are not participants in sports, they don't have the opportunity that we've had in society.
Yeah, you know, first of all, those kids were impressive. They're better than most of the talking heads I see on TV.
Yeah.
I'd listen to those kids. Where the hell are they on
Yeah.
some Tuesday night? I can learn something. And Zeke, you and I were talking about this the other day. It's almost like we're more polarized now. We were talking about back in the 70s when we were, you know, going to college and just everything. And it just seems like it's almost more polarized now. That everybody's getting in their corner, and it's like this community's here, this community's here, and they can't interact. I mean, it was so different. We had this discussion the other day just about how you walk in the locker room. There's black guys, there's white guys. You all get along, and I never thought about color ever. You're out there, you're just playing and hooping and competing. And it seems like now it gets brought up more and more and more. And I hope I sure as hell hope we're not going backwards, because it just seems like
there's a sense that we are going backwards. However, there's a sense that there's enough of us who are recognizing that, hey, we can't go backwards. We have to keep moving forward. And I think that's what these conversations are all about. How do we keep, moving forward, and how do we keep, making we the people, live up to the Constitution of what the founders believed in.
And one of the ways to do that is to continue to have the courage to have the tough conversations and to get that message out there. And I think if we continue to do that and go along that path, I think a lot of positive things will happen. And have your kids play team sports. That helps as well. And speaking of kids, Paul George, he does this every year. Goes fishing, takes a bunch of young kids. We'll look at that when we get back after the break.